So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to have a go at doing the brain training yourself. Now, I've had a couple of requests from people asking for just a clearer explanation on how the brain training works. So if you haven't seen it already, I've actually been doing live streams most days with me doing the brain training, where I've done 10 rounds of this game to basically just show how easy it is, or somewhat easy how it is to do, but just how to incorporate it into your daily life and it really just express what kind of results you can get from it as well. But a few people I've watched it, they're still unsure. They don't quite understand, what exactly is going on. And they're also struggling with getting going with it. Now, I'll say at the start here, it really is about finding a rhythm that works for you. And as I explain exactly what the game is, how it works, I'm going to literally break everything down. So I'll go over exactly what the grid is. I'll go over what the audio matching is, what the position matching is, what the levels exactly mean, as well as I will give you some visual examples of exactly how the game is played. And then towards the end of this video, I will give you a demo of it. I'll do one where we try and do it together, and then I'll do one where it's just me playing it in silence, giving it a go. Because at least then you can see what it looks like when I'm trying to actively consider all of the things that I'm sharing with you in this video, that I hope will just at least give you the inspiration to give it a go yourself. Now, I'm going to put the link to this brain training game in the description below. So by all means, do give it a watch, or do download it, I should say, and give it a try yourself. And if anything, watch this video to really give you the explanation on how it works. So I'm going to try and include absolutely everything in this, and I really hope that it kind of gives you the clarity on how this game works and how to actually play it. Now, if you've not heard of this before, or you've only just been introduced to it, Dual and Back is a memory game that works on your short-term and long-term memory and something called fluid intelligence. And when you can improve on these particular things, I find it's really good helping people with their anxiety, their self-esteem, their limiting beliefs, maybe even that little voice that they've got in their head, as well as when they're having conversations with new people, and not necessarily just in dating, but when they are speaking with new people, it really helps with their creativity and improv and remembering things that the other person has said. Because we've all been there where, you've been chatting to someone and then you have a brain fart moment, or you've forgotten what they said, you feel embarrassed, and maybe you're too lost in your head because the person you're speaking to is too attractive, and you're not actually listening to what they're saying. So this game helps with all of that, and it's why I really do think that everyone should give it a go. So the first thing that we'll look at is the actual grid itself. Now, ignore the fact that at the top here it says dual 5-back. That's just the current level that I am on. But when I do the example, I will purposely actually fail them to actually bring the level down and show you on a more suitable level what the game is and how it works. But for now, let's just have a look at everything that's on screen. So firstly, you've got at the top here that it says dual 5-back, and this is just the indication of what level you are on. You can see on the right here, it says 45 remaining. Now this is basically the sequence counter. How many positions are left remaining that are going to be said and also revealed to you. So what happens when you're playing this game is a square will appear as well as an audio cue will be said. And it's a case of remembering the position and the audio cue. Now, this is simultaneously happening as you are going through the rounds and also the level that you are on as well. And the higher the level, then usually the more sequences or positions are there. So on dual 5-back, there is 45, we'll call them characters. Maybe that's probably easier to say. There are 45 characters that will end up appearing, and that is going to be both, again, simultaneously a letter that's said, as well as also a position that is revealed on the grid. On lower levels, there is a lot less. So I think on dual 3-back, I'm pretty certain it's about 30, 33, something like that. So whatever level you are on, because of the length of the sequence that you will be trying to remember, or the length of the positions that you were going to be trying to remember, this number certainly gets bigger and bigger as the levels go up. Now, the next thing is the grid. So you can see here, you've got 9 squares and you've got a crosshair in the middle. So the square, the blue square that's going to appear on this is going to fill up one of these squares on the grid. Now, it's worth noting that the square that you're going to be trying to remember on this grid and the positions for it does not appear in the center. The center will have the crosshair that you can see here, and it will always be there as well. So you've really only got 8 positions that you need to remember, and that's just literally all around that center square. But I will give you a much clearer explanation with that as I progress with this video. And then at the bottom here, really more is just a reference for as you're playing this game, especially if you're doing it on a computer or on a laptop like I am. You either have a choice of pressing the letter A or the letter L to select either a position match or an audio match. Or what I like to do, especially on a laptop, because the mouse clicker thing is obviously built into the laptop, I can press the left click and the right click to do the exact same thing. So the next thing then is what is meant by the position match and audio match. So like I mentioned before, as you are going through the level and as the characters and as the positions are getting revealed to you, you are simultaneously remembering both a position and an audio cue. So what does the position thing look like? So you're going to have basically a blue square appear on the screen. Now, in the settings, you can actually change this as well. It doesn't have to be blue. I have for many years just kept this as its default. I think it just makes sense to leave things as is. It's already a challenge to go through. And this square in particular will move around the grid. So it might be there one moment. If I'm just re-click that. So it might be there one moment, the next it might be over here, the next it might be down here, then it might be up there, then it might be back down there, and so on. But again, it will only appear in one of these 8 squares. Now, the purpose of the game is that you are remembering if this square has reappeared in the exact same spot so many positions back. So as this is dual 5-back, or we'll call it level 5, that means I need to remember up to 5 positions back. So if, let's say, this blue square was position number 1, then it went to 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, and then the next one ends up back here, as what I would say as the next sequence, remembering then the next 5 after that, and I will go through that, then this would be where I would left click or press A to signal that this is back in the same position that it was 5 positions ago. And this is the exact same thing with the audio as well. So you have letters that are said out loud. You have a lovely woman's voice who will say like C, T, S, and the idea also with that is when the same letter is said so many positions back. So again, in this case with level 5, then I would need to keep a memory or keep track of if that letter has been said 5 times back and if it's in that same position again. And what makes it then even more complex is the fact that you are remembering visually and through sound, through audio at the exact same time. So as this square then moves, so let's say it was first of all off, and then it appears, it might say T, C, S, D, T, Y, and so on. So you are really, really working your brain here, having to remember not just the visual cue, but the audio cue as well. And this is where you really feel the hyper focus after you've done so many rounds of this. Now you are actually given a little bit of time in between each character or each position that is said. You're not given much time. It's about a second and a half. So imagine there's just a slight pause as everything is said. And you'll see that as in an example just a little bit later on. So I've kind of covered what the visual cue looks like here quite easily, but I think just to elaborate a bit more with the audio side of things, I'm going to just show it to you in a much more visual way. So imagine, if I just move this on screen, whoops. So imagine that this is a sequence that the voice has said. So I've got here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 positions said. So let's say I was on the level 3 back. So I was doing dual 3 back, which would mean I would need to remember 3 positions back here. Then the way and how I kind of do this is I try and remember things in batches. Because if you were to try and remember this sequence of 9 here in one go, I think that's incredibly overwhelming to try and remember all of that. But what happens if this were to actually be broken up and it would make it more digestible? So if I were to just put a space between these, suddenly now we've got it as TCS, VDC, TDS. And that's kind of then what I have going on in my mind. I can then almost like picture that shorter sequence in my head, and then the next sequence that I'm remembering kind of replaces that previous one. And if there's anything there that certainly matches what was in the previous batch that I've tried to remember, then that is where then I can click either the left button or the right button. And of course, in this, as I'm talking about the audio match, I'd be clicking the right. So in fact, what I'll actually do, just to maybe add an extra level of visualization onto it, if I just were to just duplicate this level, I'm going to just move it just above it. But then if I were to change this to 1, 2, 3 space 1, 2, 3 space 1, 2, 3, and just separate these a bit more. There you go, perfect. So this then would be an easy way to remember on the 3 back level what's going on with the audio cue. So I would be remembering TCS, right? VDC right? There's nothing in that that's in the exact same positions of the first batch. So I now can let go of this first batch, and now VDC is the one that I'm trying to remember. And then when the next sequence is said of TDS, well, what we can certainly pick up on here is the fact that there are two Ds in the exact same position. So yeah, we'll go with this color at the moment. So because the D on the next batch that I've remembered is in the exact same spot as the D from the previous batch that I remembered, then that means if I click the right button, I should then get a green flash that says that that was correct in recognizing it. So again, there's different ways to remember these sequences, and I just found for me that I try and like group the letters together if I'm remembering them, and then also with what I'm seeing visually, I try and almost remember a path that kind of like zigzagging all over the place of where that blue square has been. So the next thing to then consider is the level that you're on. So you can see here that I'm on 5 back, which then means that I need to try and remember a sequence of 5 positions back, and that if the square is in that position 5 positions back, then that would be where I would click the left button on my laptop. Or if I hear the letter being said 5 positions back, then I would click the right button on my keyboard. If I was doing 4 back, then I would be obviously remembering 4 positions back. And if the blue square is in that position, I'd click the left. And if it was the letter said back 4 times, then I would click the right. So that's essentially the kind of ripple effect of that. Now, I would say if you can do level 3 is considered the normal for most people. It's still quite a challenge, especially at the start. But if you can do 3 back, then you are normal like everyone else. Now, then you've got level 4, which is just slightly above average. Then you've got level 5, which is well and truly above average. And then, of course, if you start going into 6, 7, and 8, those are where you are really going into the very clever genius sort of territory. And to toot my own horn, I've only managed to get there once. And that was from doing this brain training probably about 6, 7 months straight, doing about 20 rounds per day. So as you can imagine with that, there is a lot of training with that. It was also very unnecessary to do that level. But as you can imagine, like the focus that I got, my ability to recall things was certainly at a very heightened level. And it meant that when I was having conversations with people, I could easily remember things, not just the things that they were saying, but things that I could recall from my own experience and past as well. And also it just helped me with my anxiety, as well as that inner voice that I'd had. It just kept my focus on the other person, which again is why this game really is so great. So how then do I actually sit here and play the game? Well, I think first of all, it's worth just making sure that you've got yourself positioned in a way that you've got then the grid directly in front of you. This then makes it, I think, just so much easier. I've actually found like if I'm like slouching, if I'm not really sitting comfortably, if the actual grid isn't so much at eye level, then I actually find that it's a little bit more difficult for me personally to actually remember where things are. Because as well, there's not going to be anything in the center. I do think it's important. For me, I focus on the crosshair the entire time. I try not to let my eyes dart all over the place, because I find the more movement I have with my eyes, it actually also interferes with recalling where the audio and visual cues are. So the more still I can make myself by staring directly at the screen and then looking directly at that crosshair in the middle, then I can just literally just focus on where this blue square is appearing just around that peripheral vision of mine. And I find it's just much easier to recall. And of course, the more practice you get in with this, then the better and easier it does become. So don't think that, the first time that you do this, oh, well, you're going to now master it. It does take practice. I'd say it probably still took me a couple of weeks until I got comfortable and found my rhythm with this. And then that was where I was able to just put all of my energy and focus into just remembering things rather than sort of like shifting myself around in my chair. So it's just worth noting with that. And I think as well, even just having like a somewhat arm's length to the screen that you're actually playing this on can also make a difference. I think if you're too close to the screen and it makes the grid look even bigger because of course it's nearer to your face, then I think that also can interfere with like how much movement your eyes are trying to track with the blue square. Whereas if I'm actually at a distance, so I mean, if I were to sit a bit further away, then I've got just a very smaller space that I'm actually looking at the grid, and I find then that my eyes will move a lot less during the actual rounds. So for this final part, I'm now gonna walk you through what the actual game is like to play. So I'm going to do the first round essentially with you, so I'm not going to necessarily take it too seriously. And then on the second round that I do, I'm actually going to focus and try and do it properly. So as you can kind of see, I have actually dropped my level on purpose. So I was on the 5 back, as you saw just on that screenshot before. And I've now brought myself back down to dual 3 back. So the goal here is to try and remember the sequence and positions of the last 3 back. So wherever the blue square appears 3 times, then on that next one, I'm remembering, was it back in position number 1? And the same with the letter as well. It's a case of remembering, right, where was that? Was that also said position-wise so many back as well? So I'm going to just pop my headphones on, and hopefully the audio should get recorded as well. In fact, let me just move that there. There we go. That's probably much better. So hopefully the audio gets recorded as well, and we'll go through this together. And I'll just kind of walk you through, what goes through my mind as I'm actually doing this, and also just pointing out certain things that you'll see visual cue wise on screen.
R.
Okay, so we got R,
K,
R, K, and it's been
L.
there. So I would already be remembering
C.
that as R, K, L,
R.
and we had it one there, one
K.
there, and one there. So you can see
S.
like it just keeps on going. There's
R.
no stopping, and you are getting roughly about a second in
S.
between. The seconds in the top,
Q.
Compared to what level 5 was,
L.
much smaller number, because
Q.
it was on what, 20, 25, something
S.
like that.
R.
You can also see at the bottom here that it flashes
C.
blue if that was one that should have
T.
been either a left click or a right
H.
click.
Q.
Try and remember it. So we've got Q,
S.
Q, S,
K.
Q, S, K.
K.
Okay, so the position is the same.
S.
So there you go, green. Both are correct.
K.
And both are correct.
H.
Okay, got the same position again.
S. C.
Okay, now if I were to guess this wrong,
R.
it would be red.
T.
So R, T,
R.
R. There you go, just wrong again. So then afterwards, it actually gives you a percentage on how you scored with getting them correct. And then at the bottom here, you've then got your position and audio cues to be remembering there as well. So L is the audio and A is position. It's a bit weird, the kind of letters that they picked with that, to be quite honest. I think it just would have been probably better to have had A and V, and then V would be visual and A would be audio rather than the letters being the other way around, which, to be honest, even after all this time, it still gets a bit confusing for me. So I have to remember. And also, as you're playing the game as well, you find like, you might think like, oh, bugger, actually, I pressed the wrong button instead of that one. So that's something. And you can see here, we've got the session counter. Roughly each one was 3 seconds as we were going through, and that round took 87 seconds. And the really important one to just be aware of is the thresholds here. So if you stay within the window of 50% to 80%, then you'll see on the numbers here, or on that round, it will be in grey. And if you stay in the grey, basically you will just constantly stay in this level. And if you go below 50%, then it will be in the red, as you can already see up here. And if you go in the red 3 times in a row, then you are automatically dropped down a level. So when I was just trying to bring this level down on purpose, another day I must have already got one wrong on level 5. So when I got 2 more level 5s wrong, it dropped me to level 4. And then once I got 3 wrong on level 4, it then dropped me down to level 3. Again, remembering 3 positions back rather than 4 positions back or 5 positions back. And if you get above 80%, then you will instantly get moved up a level. And where the brain training really gets you to experience the reps and the strength from it is where you will get automatically bumped up a level when you get past that 80% threshold. In other words, you get 80% of the clicks left and right correct. You'll then find that maybe the next level up is a bit of a strain for you. So it's a bit like if you were in the gym and you were lifting a heavy weight, you got to a certain point that your body just can't lift anymore. So then you get 3 rounds wrong, and then it brings you back down to the level below. And then you'll find suddenly you might have now even better strength on that lower level. So in this case, you will have a better recall and a better memory when you go back down to a level that you were previously on before. Now, it's also a roller coaster when you're playing this. Just because you've gone up a level doesn't mean that you won't necessarily come back down. Sometimes you also have good days. Sometimes you have bad days. I've had days that have genuinely brought me back to dual 3 back. And then I've had days where I've very instantly gone back up to level 5 within like 1 round after the next, So you just have to go with the flow with it and just accept that your brain can handle only so much of a workout per day as well. So you will have a good day, you will have a bad day. It doesn't say anything about you if suddenly you're getting them constantly wrong. It just means that you've got a lot on your mind. And I would even probably say, like, if you've had a stressful day where you aren't able to have that focus on this game, then you will most likely find that those will be the days that you struggle with a little bit more. So just to kind of like finish up, I'm going to do now 1 round of me actually focusing. So I'm not going to talk. I'm going to try and play the game. And I'm hoping that I can actually go back a level up, and you will see what it looks like when you get above that 80% threshold. So I'm going to click spacebar to begin, and then I'm going to go straight through to playing this.
Q T Q R S H R R Q R C S S S C R C C K C C T K, C, C, T, R, C, C.
There we go. Brilliant. So yeah, I felt that I only got one wrong there, and that has now bumped me back up to dual 4 back. So now rather than trying to remember 3 positions back, I'm now trying to remember 4 back instead. So typical things that I think people tend to ask is like, when it comes to the sequence, are they always going to be in the same position every time? No, they are not. Every game that you play of this, every round, whether you're moving up and down or staying on the same level, is completely random. The computer or the AI just sort of generates it. And it's just a case of, if the positions essentially align with where they were so many positions back. So don't think that if you try and remember an entire sequence of a level that you are going to be having that same thing again. It changes every time. And you'll also find that even when you are going through a level, the same letter isn't said on the same position that the square is on. So like, where just in that round, I think like with the letter S or T, when it was said, one moment it was in the top right, the next it was in the bottom left. It changes every single time. And this is just where your short-term memory is certainly challenged. And it just really pushes that skill of you developing that short-term memory and of course the fluid intelligence. So I hope that this video has been useful for you. I hope it gives you a better understanding of how this game works. Again, in the description, I've actually got a link to it. So the game is called Dual and Back. It's by a company called The Brain Workshop. There are certainly other interpretations out there in the world, but this is certainly, I think, one of the longest and original running ones. So do check it out. I'm got no affiliate with them. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. I just got introduced to this game about 5-6 years ago, and I think it's probably one of the most beneficial things that I've got to experience in my life. It has its ups and downs because it's not the most spectacularly exciting game to be playing. But if you are someone who has a lot of anxiety, this is fantastic for you. I can't recommend it enough for you to play, even to just give it a go. Try it for a week or so. And if anything, let me know in the description below or in the comments below how you got on with playing this. But otherwise, if you are still stuck on stuff, if there maybe have things that I've forgotten to mention in this video, then do let me know in the comments and I will be more than happy to answer them. But other than that, I really hope this video helps you. I hope it gives you a better understanding of how the game plays. It really is about finding your own rhythm with playing this. I have found, again, with my way of thinking, I kind of like group the letters together, as well as I can kind of visually imagine like a line, like doing like a dot to dot or an arrow kind of moving towards things. But this is really where it will be about your journey and just trying to figure out what works for you as well. So let me know in the comments how you get on with this. I'd love to also see if maybe there's other strategies that you've got different to how I do things. But this again is a fantastic game. Give it a try. And I look forward to hearing more stuff from you guys. But I've been Dan, that dating anxiety guy. And good luck with having a go at this brain training game.